taking a look at how to use my puck to sharpen my hatchet. Hey everyone, thanks for coming along. I'm going to take a look at how I use my puck to sharpen a hatchet. I use this thing on knives too. I do like pull throughs. They're really simple, great beginner way to go. This isn't too tough either. Easy to use, pretty small. Almost dropped it there. I would say this is a nowadays traditional, because it's been around for a while, way of sharpening, and a pretty light way to have a stone in your pack. It's not a full-size sharpening stone, although I like those too. Look at how to sharpen a hatchet. I actually prefer a hatchet over a knife most of the time, but it's really not cool walking around the city with a hatchet on your belt. So I do carry a knife everywhere. So I have a knife more often, but that would be my tool of choice. And so this is an example of a cheaper camp hatchet. This one's a Husky. You can get this at your Home Depot or wherever. This is a whetstone, so you really want to soak it with water. So I did have it soaking a while, but every now and again, and this is something I used to do a long time ago when I was a cub, and even before that, just sitting around the campfire with we were at the cottage or whatever, and just saw all the old people doing it the same way. And it's not super scientific, not at all COVID friendly. We're going to put a little spit on here and let that soak in. Now it won't soak as much in right away, so we'll get that gob on there. I know that's gross, but I don't know if you guys remember this, anyone, when you were younger, when you put that on there to wet that up. And I use my finger as a guide. And why I like these little circular stones is they really keep your fingers out of the way easily. And you could do that on a bigger stone, but they're so big, they're a little unwieldy. And when I'm doing my hatchet, I'm going to work with it like this, or maybe like this. So it's really easy to do left to right. And I've still got a great handle on it. But really in about a minute, you can take your lower grit. This one's a 180 and then a 320, and you can just feel that with your fingers if you're not sure, rubbing the edge there. I'm going to want to look at lining this up so that the edge here really has no gap from the puck. And so I've seen Dan on Cold Cracker Bushcraft. He really describes it well. I don't even know if you can see that, but there'll be a little gap of a line that I can never see. So his description's great, but I can't see it, Dan. And I think you do a great job on your video. So I love watching you. If you haven't checked him out, get over to Cold Cracker. So if you just lean that in, eventually you're going to get rid of that line, and that's going to be the right angle. You're going to see this one, bit of a concave, and I like more of a Scandi grind. I do a lot of, like, not really whittling, but fine work with a hatchet. It's not an axe for me. This is more, it's got a lot more functions now. An axe, I'm using it for a lot less. This is a nice size. What I'm doing though is I'm putting my finger on the blade. So you got to be careful, and a lot of people are going to use gloves. So remember, this is educational, and if you're not comfortable with this, don't do it. Put a little bit more spit on there. Yep, gross. Does the job. Soaks it right in there. And if you didn't have any water handy, which that's really a bad idea if you're out there with water or without water, then don't do that. So use some spit on your puck. This is 180. I got my finger just at the edge of the blade, and I can actually kind of feel when the blade is in contact with the stone. I can just feel that. And so then I know I'm in the right spot. I'm not doing the whole blade at once. I'm not going back and forth here. I'm doing circular motions, which I think this is how these are meant to be used. And I'm just rubbing it there. And I can use two fingers here to mark the surface that I'm kind of shooting for. Because it's round, I'm not going to get the whole thing. And you guys are probably hearing that. It's really a rough grit. You're going to hear a lot of noise. So I'm not counting, and I should have. I want to give the equal, same amount of rotations as you would on both sides, also in each area. So let's say we're going to do 20. Now I realize I already did more than 20. Then I'm going to move over my fingers a little just to the next part on the bit or blade. Give that a circular motion again and see if you guys can see it that way. And I can feel the metal. It's kind of like a grit. It's also, I think, the stone wearing away too. Coming off there, and then I'm going to move over a piece again. Depending on the size of the bit, I might have 3 or 4 movements here. And some people are sharpening their hatchets up just as sharp as their knife. That's the way I like mine. But with this stone at 180 and 320, it's not going to get as sharp as I have my knife. So I might pull out a diamond, I guess, sharpener, honer, or whatever. I kind of like to have those because they're small. And why I like this stuff is it's really small. And you can use a small stone too. Got one of those actually that fits into where I have a little knife that has a little pocket for that. Everyone keeps thinking it's for a Zippo, and no, it's for a small stone. It's just nowadays people aren't really doing things the same way, and we have new technologies. I got to tell you, the diamond stuff works great as far as I can tell, but there's something therapeutic, and I even lost count. You can see this will get darker as you use it. I lost count of how many times I rotated there, but I can feel the grit on the blade here. So you might want to wipe that with a cloth, and it's actually pretty sharp. But now to rotate, all I've done is gone from this direction to this direction, and I feel really comfortable here. Now, you have a longer handled axe, you can tuck that underneath. I don't really need to do that. I'm gonna put a little more spit on here after I wipe that down. Use the thumb, let it soak in. So this is, I don't know why that's bad. If people think that's bad, you'll have to let me know. It's what I was shown as a kid, and not that people took the time to explain it. So I'll show it this way, maybe even you don't really see much there. Nobody took the time to explain it. I just watched people do it by the fire. There's so many things I saw my grandfather do, or some uncles or other family, that I don't see anyone else doing. One of them, my grandfather did some interesting things for fishing. He'd walk around the creek, and he was not always using a fishing rod, and he was doing just fine. That said, I think it has to do with part of my ancestry and some of the skills he had, part of my family heritage that people don't really talk much about, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But coming down here, so I've got that grit going. I'm almost done. And typically, depending what I have when I'm in the field, I might just wipe that on my pants back and forth. Not quite as a stroke, but to get the grit off there. But there we go. I can feel a decent edge there. It's not shaving sharp, but if you look at the blade, it's not in horrible condition. Probably can put some oil on it, but I'm going to flip over and go to the finer side. So I don't know how they come up with the grit numbers, because I would have thought I'm going to go 180, we'll go 360, but this is a 320. It's just what I bought. A no-name puck on Amazon. It was really cheap. Geez, it might have been 14, 15 bucks. And I don't really think you need to spend a lot of money. I've never actually had an Arkansas stone, so I might try one just to see what the hype's all about. I just have like no-name stones, a little mini one and some bigger ones. 600 and 1000 grit. And then I use sandpaper too. I'm just chatting now. Just kill some time here. I'm doing this side of the blade, and I'll flip back so you guys can maybe have a look. But I can feel as I move over with my finger, I just kind of wiggle down. I'm not moving the blade, so I don't want to risk sliding my finger across a blade while it's moving. I don't feel a high risk here, but I've been doing this a while. So I just wiggle my fingers down. You can hear that grinding. That's a bit of a sign. Time to add a bit more spit. Let it soak in a bit. It really, these things, even though it was soaking before I came out, they absorb a lot of liquid. There's a lot of pores in here. Now I find the spot that seems to need a decent amount of work, because people don't sharpen them up much in the first place, is right around the ends of the bit. And I like it to be sharp there, but I can feel on this one, it needs a lot of work. So I've done this side, right? I'm gonna go over here, still a bit damp here. Now, really, you could just be soaking this in water, guys. It's just handy, and it is that thing we did at the campfire. So I don't know if anyone else does that. And, you know, during a time of a world plague and for hygiene reasons, you may not want to be licking someone else's sharpening stones or pucks, because you don't know if they're spitting on them. It's an old school thing around here anyway. But now maybe you guys can see. I don't know if you can see in the gap there. You hear that? It's got a kind of a higher pitch to it. But it is the finer grit. I'm going to get myself one of my staves that I've been working on and show you why I like them sharp. So let's test that. But I'm not going to shave with this hatchet. But that's how I use a puck. I just find a little less effort stripping these with the hatchet. You know, it's a nice sharp blade now. And I can put just a little wiggling. It's less effort. I can get my knife in there. But I feel like after a while, this is less work. And then when I get to those little hard areas, I can just give it a little bit of a bash. And yeah, I can do that with my knife too, but I've got some decent weight. And I just like the feeling of the hatchet head when I'm doing that. So it makes it really easy. And this will do your feather sticks and stuff too, if it's sharp enough. Now, there's a lot of people and a lot of times when I've seen a hatchet, and it was not going to do that. So that's a quick look at how I would use a sharpening puck. Again, a 180 by 320. It's going to get you moderately sharp. You can take it to the next level with something of a higher grit, you know, hit up to 1,000. You'll get this just as sharp as your knife. But you do want to keep these relatively sharp. It's just going to make your life easier, less work, a lot safer, and it's just going to have the tool last a little longer. You are basically just sanding this thing finer and finer. And there you go. It's going to be relatively sharp. I wouldn't say shaving sharp, but that's going to be enough to strip off the wood off of a staff or do some feather sticks or whatever. If you want it sharper, well, put a little more time in and get a higher grit. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully that helps you out. I'm just going to show you, I do it with my fingers. I'm blind. I really can't see that little line he's talking about. I know it's there, but you can do it by touch. Just do the same amount of time and you kind of walk your fingers down. Be careful. You're not trying to slice your fingers off. You're kind of walking them down, come down the blade. And you can come down, maybe do a little extra on the end. So that usually needs a little bit more work. And walk your way back, and there's side one. Flip the puck over. That little gob on there. Yep. Take a look. Pop it on here. Right? And I'm just using the fingers to feel that the gap is closed. Okay, so there you go. Got the finer edge. Go down at the end. Usually the finer needs a little less. And back again. Now I'm just going to flip it around the other way, so we're halfway sharp. And away we go. Get this comfortable. It's a longer handle. Get it under the armpit or over the neck. And nice and even. You don't even have to move the blade. So over to the other side. And there are different grits of stone you can use. Get the one you like. That's what I got because it was cheap. It was 14, 15 bucks on Amazon. Now it's done.